Hello, everyone. I'm Jim Garrison, and in the spirit of the trees, in the spirit of all of living nature, with deep gratitude to our ancestors, I want to welcome you to this session of Humanity Rising. Since we started in May of 2020, the issue of public health has been a constant theme in our programming. We originated during the depth of the pandemic when we were all in lockdown and engaging in social distancing and wearing masks. We saw that all over the world, in virtually every country afflicted by COVID-19, public health issues came to the fore. Issues relating to mental health and psychological and emotional well-being were all challenged. The number of crimes, domestic abuse, depressions, neuroses of various kinds, suicides, all went up virtually everywhere. So the issue of health and the issue of how, in the midst of a global pandemic, we navigate our health with the kind of resilience that we require to stay strong. Not only physically, but mentally, psycho-emotionally, as families, as communities, has been one of the overriding concerns of people everywhere. So we're very delighted today to announce the beginnings of a 5-day program today on regenerative health. It's being convened by my good friend and colleague, Dr. Stephanie Mines, an embryologist, a neuroscientist who's written 5 books on various aspects of neuroscience and life. She's also the founder of Climate Change and Consciousness, and has really been looking with a clarity and a depth, I think it's rare in the world today, about how you develop inner resilience, resilient health within the framework of radically changing climate and a world now characterized by escalating turbulence that is causing trauma at levels and in ways that we did not see before the pandemic. So Stephanie, I want to welcome you to Humanity Rising. She's the convener of all 5 days, and she has other programs in store as we continue our daily broadcasts. So Stephanie, welcome to Humanity Rising, and I turn the program over to you.
Thank you so very much, Jim, for that beautiful introduction, and welcome everyone to a bold summit that intends to radically shift your consciousness around healthcare, and most importantly, around your role in healthcare. My intention is to arouse a global cadre of regenerative health practitioners and to change the very structure of what we think of as both receiving and imparting healthcare. For today, we're focusing on beginnings. This is a beginning. It's a powerful beginning, and you'll hear more about that later. But I want to start the way all healing should start, with invocation. Imagine, as we proceed, that you are experiencing the invocations you're about to receive when you come into the emergency room, when you come into your therapist's office, your doctor's office. Our first invocation comes from mi hermana, mi amor, la doctora Anita Sanchez, an author, a spiritual leader of unprecedented value. Everything you need to know about Anita, though, you will know in her invocation, in her voice and her words. She is the indigenous, Latina, initiated wounded healer. Her credentials are in her embodiment and in the spirit she raises in every word, every gesture, her seamless fulfillment of her purpose in being. Bienvenida, mi amor, Anita Sanchez.
Thank you. Welcome, all my precious relations. I'm Anita Sanchez. I'm Nawa, but I'm on the land in Colorado, in Boulder, that the Cheyenne, Ute, and Arapaho, and they are not gone, they are still here. And I invite you to welcome your ancestors as you're here with us, for they will always be here with you. You merely need to ask, and sometimes you don't even ask, and we know they're here. Every morning I start, which was where my uncle always taught us, we must start at the beginning. So I start with giving gratitude and inviting in all of the hoop of life to help support the life-giving nature of that day. So if you would lower or close your eyes and listen with the softest part of your ears and expanding heart. As I start with first singing gratitude to the great mystery. Da da ne ho, da da ne ho, nya nya swam hi ho, nya nya swam hi ho. Gratitude. Da da ne ho, da da ne ho, nya nya swam hi ho, nya nya swam hi ho. Gratitude. Da da ne ho, da da ne ho, nya nya swam hi ho, nya nya swam hi ho. Da da ne ho, da da ne ho, nya nya swam hi ho, nya nya swam hi ho. Gratitude. We give thanks with each day and with each breath. We deepen our understanding of our relationship with all of life. Special thank you to the plants, to nature. Humbled before you as your strength, willingness, and ability to bring healing. Throughout time, you have been a very deep and generous relation to us. We are humbled, for we, the five-finger ones, are having a deep look at what gives us life right now, what life means to us right now, what is healing. There are hard things that we're going through, illness and death, loss, uncertainty, in an unprecedented way. Some of our elders are leaving this physical world, and many of our relations all over the earth are experiencing violence. May each of us reach out to all of our ancestors, deep from our heart, our ancestors past, present, and even those in the future. We call out for your strength and wisdom as we move forward. Also at this time, let us support us, Great Mystery, in reconsidering what is possible, to consider the future, to consider healing in the deepest way, to consider our children and our children's children and other species' children. We ask that this gathering be a place where we provide the grace and space for us to be in life-giving community, in whole healing community. Ask, and we listen to receive your words, our songs, our actions, our blessings. Gratitude for all my relations, for all our relations. In beauty we walk, In beauty we walk. In beauty we walk. In beauty we walk. Aho.
Mil gracias, mi amor. Taking in the invocation for this gathering, for you personally, for the world. Our second invocation comes from Lev Natan. Lev's essence is unifying and bridge building. He will link us with all the diverse lineages that often we don't even know that we have. And again, imagine that this is how you begin your healing process. This is how you begin your day. This is how you launch a request for healing because you are suffering, because you are struggling, as the whole world is right now. Lev Natan.
Yeah, greetings, each and every one of you. My name's Lev Natan, and I want to say thank you to Stephanie and to all of the panelists, and then everyone that's here together, in this big circle all around the planet, all around our Mother Earth, like that. I live in Housatonic, Massachusetts, the Berkshires. It's the original homelands of the Stockbridge Munsee band of the Mohican people. And we are reestablishing those relations here in this area in the Northeast. And then all of the original peoples, Native Americans of this Northeast too, we were remembering as our neighbors here. Then I live here with my wife, Sarah Natan, and my son, Emmett Cole Natan. And then I have two parents, Alan Spivak and Sherry Grossman. They live in Boston. So then our ancestors are from the Ukraine too. We came here 100 years ago to this land. So I just like to introduce myself to each other, and then to the Creator too, to the altar, so that we're all focusing on and invoking here together. So the way I've been taught, then also from my native relatives, my Navajo grandfather, Jake Singer, he told me to introduce myself in this way, and then also my Lakota relatives too over there in South Dakota, in the Rosebud Reservation, where I sundance over there, and then I'll be sundancing in Texas this year, actually. So want to acknowledge my relatives in that way, and then to humble myself here on my knees. That's how I like to pray, ask for help, ask for guidance, say thank you to the Creator, say good morning to the Holy Creator here on behalf of all my relatives who are here. We're on our knees, even if we're not actually on our knees. We're here in a humble way to ask for your help and to say thank you for bringing us together with this good thought in mind to regenerate our healthcare system. So like that, we want to ask for the guidance and the support and the protection too as we move forward from the guardians of the East, the guardians of the South, the guardians of the West, and the guardians of the North, and then the guardians of the earth and the guardians of the sky, and then each one of us at the center of our own life too, with walking in that sphere the energy sphere of life that surrounds us. Each one of us, we have that, and we can remember it. It's wonderful. This life force that we live with all the time. So say thank you so much for that. And then there's an energy sphere around our whole planet Earth too. Our Mother Earth, she has her own vitality, and we share it, and we say thank you, and we can help her to regenerate as well. So we feel that energy sphere all around us, and then want to feel connected here to this buffalo song that we sing in the sweat lodge, from the Southern Ute sweat lodge tradition here from my grandfather. And then that buffalo spirit, that what I've been taught, it is a wonderful spirit, and it's a wonderful being. The sacred buffalo, they provide all of the sustenance and all of the health for the people, to everything that the people that they need. And the buffalo, it provides for the people, everything. So we can think about that, that everything we need, we can have it, and we do have it. And we just can open ourselves to it and to say thank you for it. So this is the buffalo song here. Yahweh, 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 hey Yahweh, 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 hey Yahweh, 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 hey Yahweh, 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 hey Yahweh, 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 hey Yahweh, Yahweh. Thank you so much, Holy Creator, and each and every one of us. Thank you for our good thoughts, our good prayers, our good feeling in our heart, to begin this journey that we're on here. It's the first day of the rest of our lives. So like that, we can begin again in anything that we think, in this space here, in this ceremonial space, then it's going to be like that. So we're very careful with our thoughts, with our words, with our intentions, with our prayers at this time in particular, because we want it to be good for ourselves, for our families, for our communities, and for our children, our grandchildren, for the future generations to come. So it's going to be like that because we have that trust and that faith. So thank you so much, each and every one of you. Aho.
Thank you, Lev. We can begin again. We can begin again, taking in the love that comes from the song and the words of Anita Sanchez and Lev Natan. Imagine that this love is what infuses you as you begin your healing journey. When you're suffering, when you're ill, when your child is ill, when your grandpa is ill, when your mom is suffering, imagine these words coming into your being, grounding you, as my dear friends Anita and Lev have grounded me as we begin this process. I'm happy to tell you that you will hear more from Anita and Lev in the coming days, just as you will hear more from our next ceremonialist, my dear friend and colleague, Claire Hedin, who I often refer to as the voice of the earth. Just to be present to the sounds Claire draws up through her body is to receive the delivery that the earth wants to impart to us. We can begin again. Listen carefully, please, to these sounds. There is healing in every nuance. And allow the silence that comes from the sounding, the clearing of your mind, the delightful release of your discursive thinking. Allow that so that your connective tissue, the very flesh of your body, fully absorbs what this artist conveys. Claire Hedin.
Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Lev. Thank you, Anita. And thank you, everyone, for being here. And thank you, Spring, yet to come. I am currently a visitor on a lonely land, a grateful visitor on a lonely land. But my body, blood, and bones hail from the craggy walks of the British Isles, and I acknowledge them with all my heart. I also want to invoke with gratitude and humility my grandmothers, my grandfathers, my mother, my father, Carl Hedin, Gwendolyn Lowe. They lift my bones. They lift my bones. I come from the sky, from the deep forest and the deep ocean. And I bring those to you today in the spirit of learning more about connection and healing and what it really is about.
sinking more into your embodiment with these sounds from the earth, supporting us, we can begin again.
We can begin again. Every moment.
Thank you so much, Claire.
Thank you from the elements.
Feeling how these invocations are deepening your presence here, everyone. Receiving the invocation to begin again and the call. Some of you may feel the call to be of service in this way at this time. Our next invocation comes from Dr. Spring Cheng, my dear friend, a healer, a scientist, a dancer, an improviser, and an indigenous Chinese wisdom carrier of the timeless Tao. I am grateful to Spring for taking time from her deep work with her Chinese students to be here with us today. Spring is an author, a songstress, a weaver. I am so grateful to share her with you. Spring Cheng.
I'm so grateful to be here. My Chinese native name is Cheng Chun. I call myself Spring to honor the meaning that my father gave to me in the name Chun, to honor the season of spring, the beginning, a new beginning of life. I'm currently sitting in my home of Pacific Northwest. I'm looking at a lush green outside my window. My heart and my spirit is on the other side of the ocean, as I work as a teacher of indigenous Chinese ancient wisdom, the Tao, with my Chinese students and co-workers who currently are very much enduring many difficulties under the pandemics. I would like to evoke the spirit of Tao, the indigenous wisdom of my native land. And I'm also very grateful of the spirit of the land of Pacific Northwest. The indigenous spirit of Tao has been exiled from China really since the colonization period and the later the industrialization period. And it was my ancestral spirit that has guided me to come to the Pacific Northwest and to find the exiled spirit on this land where I can re-immerse myself in the Tao. Because Tao is universal. Tao is the way of nature. So as long as we listen, we open ourselves and we are receptive, the Tao is the very air we breathe. I would like to share with you today the spirit of the 5 elements in Chinese medicine. In fact, 5 element is a mistranslation. In the native language, it's called 5 processes. So each of these elements represent an active dynamic process from which life creates itself and regenerates itself, from which death and life can happen in an orderly fashion. So the 5 processes are the process of the soil, the process of the wood, the process of the water and fire, and metal, which actually in my translation is the crystal, the mineral, the crystal structure held by the minerals. And they represent the process to rest, to hold, to be still. That is actually the most important process, and that's represented by the soil. And the process to grow, to thrust to the sky like a tree. And then there's the process of feeding, nourishing, regenerative, that's represented by the water. And then there's the process of fire that transcends form, that brings the essence of life. And lastly, there's the process of the mineral, the structure that holds the vibration, the very vibration of the universe. These five spirits, the spirit of these five processes, they are alive. They imbue the world we experience around us. They imbue the physiological process that makes us alive, makes us breathe every minute, every second. By that, we are the trees. Our human body can embody the trees, can embody the soil, the water, the fire. That fire that gives us heat, that makes us to maintain this temperature of room temperature. And as well as our body is a structure that holds the universal vibration. So as an invocation, I'm going to share a Qigong movement that honors the tree and the water processes. And I would like to invite any panelist, all of you, if you want, to open your video and share this with me. And also the audience, the participants, I very much invite you. Can you hear me well? I want to see if my voice, great. So if you wish, please stand up and feel your feet on the ground, connecting with the earth. And imagine yourself as a tree, extending the root through the bottom of your feet, all the way down to the deep earth. And please feel free to sway your body, sway this body of your tree, the tree body, according to the wind that you are feeling. And meanwhile, please use our awareness to open up the space above our head. As trees, we're connecting with the sunshine, with the energy of the sun, with the rain and the clouds through our branches. Take a deep breath. In Chinese language, the character of shaman is drawn as a human being in between the earth and the sky. So anytime we are conducting ourselves as a channel between earth and sky, we are giving our shamanic service to humanity and the universe. Let's take a deep breath and connect with the earth below us with open palm, receiving, drawing the energy of the earth through the branches of our arms and reach as far as we can towards the sun, towards the rain, towards the sky, and bring that fresh energy, draw it into our body, let it flow through the channels like a river courses inside our body to wash the organs, wash the bones and the muscles all the way back through our trunk of our legs and to feed back into the soil. We are the trees. We connect with the soil. We conduct water in our body. We reach for the sky, for the spirit of the fire. So next, I would like to use this movement and sing a song called Tree and Water. And please move and sing and hum with me. Let me post the lyric of this into the chat box. Trees, dear trees, lush and green, water, sweet water, wash me clean. Trees, dear trees, watch me grow. Water, sweet water, teach me to flow. One more time. Trees, dear trees, lush and green, water, sweet water, wash me clean. Trees, dear trees, watch me grow. Water, sweet water, teach me to flow. To the Tao. Back to you. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, my panelists, for sharing the dance and song with me.
Thank you, my teacher, my friend.
Oh, thank you, Stephanie.
So imagine that song welcoming you into growth as you quest for healing. Watch me grow, whatever your age. Watch me grow. I am so grateful to my friends, to these panelists, for providing healing for me at the beginning of a summit that reflects my purpose in being more than anything else that I've created. This summit launches a vision that is bold, that is daring, and at the same time is very simple. And to begin with these blessings that frees me of my efforting, that frees me of my worried that I won't do it right, is healing for me. So I am grateful beyond words to have been healed by my own choice to invite all of you. Thank you.
Stephanie,
Yes.
I would like to acknowledge you. I would like to acknowledge that the work you are doing, the drive that moves you forward and outward, downward and upward, is on behalf of so many. And in your both tentative but bold gestures to create connection and healing between and for and with so many, it brings us together in this moment. But there is so much more that we don't see that it is generating. And I want to acknowledge you. I want to acknowledge your courage. I want to acknowledge your tenacity and the gifts that you give us that may never be actually named, but that will come forth from this. And thank you for bringing the subject of healing into the front of our minds.
Thank you, Claire.
Indeed.
I will be soaking that up all day, fueling me for this summit and everything thereafter. It can begin again. Watch me grow. So in the spirit of welcoming you into this summit, taking the time to invoke, to express gratitude, and to share who we are. What if the doctor, the therapist, the emergency room physician who you go to see begins by wanting to know who you are and telling you who they are? That is actually the theme of a wonderful book. I want to recommend Dr. Thomas Fisher, The Emergency. He's an emergency room physician, and his book includes the letters he wanted to write to his patients. And I want to say, in this Regenerative Health for a Climate Changing World Summit that dares to challenge from the ground up the Western medical model that is broken and falling apart before our eyes, that I welcome in those physicians, those nurses, all the people in that Western medical model who carry with them the awareness of the healing that is not happening in an environment that is supposedly dedicated to health. That's what Thomas Fisher does in his book, The Emergency. I recommend it to you. He writes letters to those patients who he couldn't speak to, but whose stories he sensed as he rushed from one to the other, crowding into his consciousness, into the cells of his body, stuffing the unsaid words. I'd like to read a poem as a way of introducing myself to all of you. I do want to let everyone know that it is likely today and throughout this summit that I may become inconsolable. I may dissolve into keening and tears. It's entirely possible. It's happening to me more and more. And not to worry. I may have to turn off my video. I may need to take a moment to just assemble myself, but I will be right back. And there will be someone in the room, fluid and available, to take the space that's needed while I'm missing. I don't know that that will happen, but it's quite likely. This summit, and I'll explain what this means as the week unfolds, comes from the embryo that I am. And I'll tell you more about that as we go ahead. This poem is called American Waiting Room. The round-faced woman turns to me and says, "My baby sister is dying. I'm saving up for a hot air balloon ride. It's on her bucket list. There's nothing they can do about it." My hand goes to my heart. "You are a wonderful sister," I say. The woman pulls out her phone and shows me a photo of her sister pouring a vodka martini into her feeding tube. "I'm retired now," she says. Then she points to her red, swollen ankle and continues, "I had surgery there, but since then, I can hardly walk." On the other side of the room, a mom is shushing her agitated son, who keeps hitting his head with his clenched fists. Mom adjusts her body to hide her child. Glancing furtively towards the others in the room, the receptionist keeps her eyes on the keyboard. Her long fingernails are painted green with shamrocks. It's St. Patrick's Day. The scent of a microwaved meal wafts through the cold air. Scenes of a bombed out Ukrainian city flash on the silenced television above us, and then transitions quickly to a broadcaster, immaculate and perfectly attired, seated behind an S-shaped acrylic desk in a room that rotates as if on a turntable of tragedies. I find my neutrality in the room that I share with humanity, this American waiting room. I identify the midline of my being, awash with grief and rage, grief and rage, grief and rage. In my silence, I unite with everyone, the round-faced woman, her sister, the mom, the receptionist, but especially the boy, obscured by his mother's body, his muffled, uncontrollable sounds renew my commitment to my destiny. That destiny is in this summit. Regenerative health for a climate changing world. I am here, not far from my friend Spring, in the Pacific Northwest, on the unceded lands of the Multnomah, the Clackamas, where I am welcomed by the mother trees, those trees that we embodied in Spring's wonderful, life-giving song. I am an inheritor of the refugee, tragic, nomadic story of my Russian, Belarus, Ukrainian aunts, uncles, grandparents. I lived steeped in their language, steeped in their experience of being unwanted. I am steeped in the experience of being unwanted and of having no roots. I grew up in the Bronx, New York, in a tenement building surrounded by incredible diversity that I was not allowed. I was told, I of course disobeyed, not allowed to associate with because of the Orthodox Jewish tradition that kept me fragmented. My father was tortured by traumatic brain injury, combat shock, war trauma, as were my grandparents, also tortured by war. Here we are, at a time when we can begin again. as a child, living in the cacophony of traumatic repetition inflicted on me and everyone around me. I had a dream, a fantasy that was quite sustaining. And it arose out of the question in this brilliant little girl's mind of, why isn't anybody helping us? Why isn't anybody stopping the beating, the sexual abuse, the raging, the death threats? Why isn't anybody stopping the murders in the streets? And this little one, who's me, and I believe she started having this vision in utero, where the situation was exactly the same, of course. She created a circle of healing around her. And who is to say that I did not indeed draw down wisdom keepers and healers who allowed me to not only survive, but thrive despite these crude, rude, torturous beginnings. And out of that, though I didn't put it all together until fairly recently, I became a neuroscientist, an embryologist, a neuropsychologist. I wrote books, but what I was headed towards was the manifestation of that vision, which has just been created through the invocations of today. So I would like to invite our panelists. Lev had to leave, but he'll be back. He will be continuing with this summit, and particularly tomorrow, Claire will also be with us as we explore what actually is healthcare, what actually is healing, and can we dare to represent it, no matter what our backgrounds. Anita will be with us on Cinco de Mayo. I'm very grateful to Anita for assembling an incredible panel of Indigenous Latinas to explore many of the issues that I have just articulated. And Spring is welcome to join us on any day that she would like to return. She's very occupied now, beautifully, deeply with her students in China, some of whom I've had the honor to meet. But I'd like to invite our panelists now to speak to the question of the power of beginning a healing journey in your experience as healers, as artists, as leaders in a climate changing world. What is the healing power of invocation from the standpoint of the spirit and the body? For me, I would speak to it from the standpoint of the human nervous system and how that nervous system response to everything I've experienced with you this morning is a precursor to immune strength, to true presence. I will speak to that from the standpoint of the evolving, resilient human nervous system. And I would like to hear from you, in your experience, what you've witnessed, what you intend, what motivates you to begin again. Every invocation is an invitation to begin again. How does that function in the healing dynamic?
I'd be glad to start from little bit from my perspective. Of course, I know, knowing each of you, we could spend days just on this, right? But I'll just say a couple of key things. First of all, part of what is being evoked here when you even ask that question is thinking as being a small child, even 3 and 4, and listening to my uncle. And he would always say a couple of things as we began to teach us about the people, who we are, what it means to be a whole human being. And one of the things he would say is, must always start at the beginning. That's the best place to start. If you do not speak about those who came before, and that is not only two-legged, that is also the elements and processes, as Spring calls them, all of that. And if you don't, he would say, your skin will be numb, your skin will be dumb. And I didn't understand what that meant. I used to ask my mom, she goes, shh. And then I came to understand that if we don't start at the beginning, understanding the wholeness of who we are as a human being and all that transpired before, both two-legged and other energy, everything, then we will think that today comes out of some void. You know, I'm looking at your beautiful faces and imagining the people that are here with us watching and then also listening. And I just think, no, none of this is a mistake. And it all comes from all this that came before. So part of this invocation is an acknowledgement that we are far more than just what we see in this moment, the physical. And that is broader than, I'm a scientist, so, and there's lots that I love about science, but I also know that it has its boundaries. And hopefully at some time, and it is starting with, especially with quantum physicists and others, and even biologists expanding that. And also that great thing that is now science is saying, which I love hearing, which is, I don't know. I love that I don't know. That allows for this greater, the mystery, the all the other things that come to bear. So it's an acknowledgement. It is so critical to acknowledge all that comes before, so that then I can move with all the strengths and dreams to be able to move forward, but also the whole healing process of acknowledging the difficulties and challenges that happened before, that I get to now being present, as you said, Stephanie, being really present in the fullness. So I want to say just a couple more things and I'll pass it. It's an acknowledgement that we are energy. And it's also acknowledging that we are spiritual, mental, emotional, physical. And all of that is interconnected in a healing process, whatever the process is. So whether I'm in circle, or I'm in a sweat, or I'm in ceremony, or I am standing out in the morning, as I shared that song, that chant that I sing, receiving the seeds of light as the sun rises. And in some days, it's possible to also receive the seeds from the sun and the seeds from the moon that are still out as the sun rises, that I can see. And that acknowledgement, that knowing that energy, what it does to me in being present is I have a sense of having such great support, being a part of this amazing hoop of life, that whatever the challenges are of the day, some will be met with great energy, some will have to pause and do a little weeping and then start again. But nonetheless, that it's all possible because I'm never alone. So healing does not happen alone. Wholeness, creativity, love, none of this happens alone. And then the last thing I want to say, because I think this is so important, so many prophecies that have been said over the hundreds, if not thousands of years, all over the world are coming to light. And one of the, well, not one, it's said in many different places, a prophecy is that will become a time that we're in a great winter, where the trees will die, the birds will die, that the oceans will not be living, and all these just horrific things that will be happening. And that what Spirit said to the two-leggeds as this is happening is to remember to sing your songs, do your dance, be in ceremony, and in community. And that community is our cultural, ethnic, land-based communities, but it also is talking about community in the largest sense of the cosmos. And I think I'll just stop with that. So this is not a little aside to have an invocation. And I know, and I do a lot of teaching on this because some people will call and people are wanting an indigenous person that is like, wait a minute, do you really understand? This is not just a little, give me a 2 or 5 minute. This is a real anchoring invitation for us to stand up, to fully be present in the seen and unseen, individually and collectively. Thank you for letting me respond.
Exquisite, exquisite. And the very essence of the regenerative health paradigm, the structure that you'll be hearing more about during the week. This is not just a phrase that refers to a technique or a practice. Regenerative health for a climate changing world is exactly what Anita described. It's about community. How do we create community that is bold enough to take the time for the invocations that have fed all of us? And you'll see a film that, a very simple, very amateurish film that I created with some of my students called Free to Heal, made in New Zealand, but it is about beginning with the invocations that are culturally appropriate for the individual in the healing center. And you will get an opportunity to experience a healing in community entire sequence on May 4th. So I'd like to hear from others. It looks like everybody has a gem to share with us. Claire, you look quite ready.
I find that in the silence, actually, there is so much that wants to present, and I wonder, how will that happen? The knowledge is so mycelial. There is no end to me or to any of us, any living being or element. So this appearance that we have of location is really rather strange, but intriguing. And I think it lends us towards our curiosity and our creativity. I must look at my journey, and I've had certain questions that have driven me forwards and inwards. One is about belonging. Where do I belong? Who or what do I belong to? The inverse of the typical question of our current society, which is, what belongs to me and how can I fight to keep it? Or to even have it in the first place. I know I am a collective. So the I is always we, but these eyes look out from this perspective. So I do my best to listen with the whole of me, to find out what that whole of me is, like, where does it extend to? And how can I honor it? How can I do it justice? How can I say, thank you for this body. Thank you for this lifetime. There's been a lot of suffering. And it takes time to be able to make peace with that, I have found. And I've fought against trite answers such as, oh, just forgive, just move on. It's like, no. Because the suffering is not just mine, it is ancestral, and it is a way to also integrate so that the future does not hold as much suffering in order for us to learn. So I am part of an ancestral line. And I'm in service of that. I take that really seriously. And I appreciate that it reduces my size in a way, so that I am part of something nested in something alive, something that has a heartbeat. And I recognize myself in the mountains and the forest and the sky and the seas. I belong. And perhaps if I had felt more at ease with belonging in the human family of my origin this lifetime, perhaps I would not have had to reach out to find a greater, deeper, more satisfying sense of belonging and being okay just as I am. That my brilliance is in accepting myself just as I am. All that I need to discover about my gifts occur through my vulnerability, my curiosity, and really my deep humility. I even wonder sometimes if I would have been more arrogant if I hadn't suffered earlier because of the gifts that I have, including a great intelligence that was really rejected early on in life because it was precocious, perhaps irritating, inconvenient. But it was so relentless in me. You know, this quest for knowledge, information, for understanding, for something that felt true and right beyond time. And I'd found the answers in the human interactions so completely insufficient for the vastness that I knew in my bones. Why is no one talking about this? Where's the words for this belonging? Who am I? Where do I belong? What does it mean to be home, to be at home, to feel at home? What do I need to do to feel at home? And so for me, that the answering of that question has been my journey and is my journey. And I'm becoming more at ease with it in the company of others. So the community that you refer to, Anita, I relate to that. I relate to that. I relate. Thank you.
The neurochemistry of belonging. That's what you invoke, Claire, with your sounding. You invoke the neurochemistry of belonging. That is the power of invocation as a way to begin to heal, whether you're healing emotionally, spiritually, physiologically, from chronic illness, from depression, from inflammatory conditions. What if all of that healing is preceded by the neurochemistry of belonging? And I would add this to what invocation makes possible: the safety of being in your vulnerability, being ill, being depressed, being in pain, being a new mother, carrying a baby. All of that evokes vulnerability. Where is the safety of that vulnerability? Not in the Western medical design. I've been there, either as a patient or as an advocate for someone else. The polyvagal system is destroyed in that environment. The invocation and the way in which invocation links us into belonging, we could call it a polyvagal intervention if we wanted to, and we can. But it's ancient. It's indigenous to all of us. Spring.
You know, in a jazz improv performance, different people have different instruments to amplify, augment each other. And I feel like my message is really in its musical essence the same as with Anita and Claire, but I'll bring my own, my different set of instrument of words and flavor to it. And this concept, this idea of going to begin again, in the Tao Te Ching, the Taoist text written 2,000 years ago, it says, can we go back to the state of an infant at the end of our life? So I often think about at the beginning stage of our life as an infant. In fact, as a fetus, living in the womb, it's natural for us to perceive a bigger life that's beyond our own body. It's our native ability to survive, to thrive, to be held in mother's womb is this ability to feel a bigger life outside of ourselves. And as we come out of mother's womb, become our own, inhabit our adult body, that ability is still within us. That life that's bigger than us, which I call the interbeing, which is the bigger life that formed by the collective of beings of many levels, the plant, the mineral, the trees, the animals, and human, non-human beings. Together, they form this bigger life called interbeing. It still is the womb that we inhabit. And I think the age that's coming to an end right now is the age where we deny this life outside of us. We deny our ability to feel this life bigger than us. It's the colonization, the capitalistic, extreme, commercialized, industrialized way of being that ignores that. And not only ignores that, that's treated as commodities, as consumption materials, which is literally like eating away our own flesh. And in fact, our body, our health is the last territory that's been colonized. The colonization does not just happen on indigenous land, it actually happens in our indigenous being. And the fact that we are having such a breakdown of healthcare system is the symptom, is the last call that we have, if we don't begin again, we'll lose our very being, the very fabric of being to this machine of a consumption. So to me, to invocate means to awake that ability as a fetus, as an embryo in the womb, and calling for the greater mother to heal me, to hold me, to nurture me, to help me to grow. To call the interbeing to help me. So in my adult body, just a little bit of my own story. 10 years ago, I was quitting my acupuncturist job because I see that the kind of the way that acupuncture as an Asian art has been dissected and commercialized in American culture does not fit my dream and vision what this profession is. So I stepped away from that profession, not knowing who I am, where I'm going to go, how am I going to express my unique gift in the world. And just by keep invocating, keep singing, keep dancing, keeping calling the spirit of the ancient physicians, I was led one step at a time to build a new system, to give birth. And that's the paradox of this is, as we listen to the bigger mother, we ourselves become pregnant to give. So it was just miracle in a way. Each step, it was the gift of the interbeing by synchronicities, by meeting the right people like Stephanie. Every meeting of every relationship, and that's the key is the weaving and the building of the relationship, and we create our own womb around us to honor and symbolize the greater mother. So I trust that interbeing brings us the right relationship, the right livelihood. Even though sometimes I myself feel, the conventional part of me that's still hold a pause with the colonized, industrialized mind. Sometimes I still feel anxious. I don't know how things can turn out tomorrow or next year. But I have walked on this path for 10 years and receiving the blessings and the gifts from the interbeing through invocation. And it's the same thing as Anita said, every morning. For me, the invocation is not just a one-time thing. It's a daily practice. And that's what gives invocation the power. It's like an investment. How much you put in determines how much you will receive back. Right. So yes. So may we use invocation as a tool, as a process to reweave that womb that will surround us and provide for us and nurture us and inspire us. Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you, Spring, Claire, Anita. I find myself feeling like such a student, happily sitting at the feet of those who are nourishing me. And there is a part of me that says, get on track, Stephanie. You have to organize the things that you're supposed to say on this first day of this summit. All the promotional right messages, and all I want to do is soak up what my sisters are giving me, the nutrients, the language. I've resisted taking notes and told myself that I will retain the blessings that each of you has delivered. It's the best meal I've had in a really long time. Thank you. So I do want to say I do have to notice the time, something I'm not very good at, but I do want to say that this is us beginning again. Today is invocation and gratitude as the way in which the sanctity of the healing dynamic deserves to be honored, and to create a spacious environment, which I feel now, thankfully, in my body, to allow healing to occur, was the intention for today. To make the space for a good beginning so that we can grow as we are intended to grow. What is unfolding from today is a conversation tomorrow on the very nature of healing itself and healthcare that will include Lev, Claire, and also with us will be Stella Eisenstein, and also an acupuncturist, but someone who has deeply investigated the healing dynamic. From that, we will move to an actual experience of the regenerative healthcare paradigm that I've developed. So that will be a demonstration of that paradigm. My intention is to create, as I said earlier, a practitioner cohort around the world, daring, bold, but the embryo in me believes it is possible. And I'll say more about the references to embryogenesis that in an unpremeditated way has been picked up. I especially note that in Spring's comments, the understanding of who the embryo is in all of us. It's a key piece of the regenerative health paradigm and of the TAR approach for the resolution of shock and trauma, which I developed. And I do want to reference that the regenerative health practitioner has access to what I have been building now for the last 5 years, which is a cultural library, a digital library of regenerative health resources, downloadable even without an internet connection. My embryo created that. I couldn't have done it without that embryonic intelligence. And that will be followed by Cinco de Mayo, in which we will have a panel led by Anita to look at everything we've been talking about from the perspective of Indigenous Latinas and their personal and collective experiences. Our final day will be devoted to the children of the future. And we will welcome, I am so honored about this, we will welcome Ibu Robin Lim. I'm supposed to say she's a CNN hero, which she is, but she is a remarkable woman who has devoted her life to pre and perinatal health in Indonesia and who has serviced the extreme needs of women in areas afflicted by climate catastrophe. We will be focusing on the needs of the prenatal and perinatal periods and pediatric needs. We'll also be joined by Dr. Peter Whitehouse, another neuroscientist serving in schools to help those so profoundly impacted by the suicidal path that we are on and who we are responsible for stewarding. You will be receiving links, and there are posts on the website that point you to all of these programs, to the programs of our remarkable panelists, and to a regenerative health introductory training that I will be offering through Groundswell, the educational arm of Climate Change and Consciousness. Lev Natan will also be offering a program through Groundswell in climate leadership. I want to thank everyone attending. I wish I could see you all, and I know the panelists feel the same. In this healing circle we are creating globally. There is an after chat program that has been listed in an after chat. Is that the right way to say that? Yeah, perhaps. I have been flowing so with the neurochemistry of vulnerability and the neurochemistry of belonging that I've forgotten to worry about whether or not I'm saying it right. That's healing. That's the evidence of beginning again. Thank you, everyone. And I'd like to invite Jim back in for his closing remarks.
Thank you, Stephanie, so much. Anita, Claire, Spring, all of you for everything that you've brought to our attention today. It was a wonderful thing, Stephanie, to start with an invocation. Normally, these sessions dive right into the substance, and I think you have done a great service for us just to put the pause button for today as we begin and bring in the silence and bring in the sound and bring in the blessing. So I just want to acknowledge that I think this has been a unique program where we've started with a pause rather than a deep dive. And I think there's a healing logic to all of that. So I just want to thank you. As we move through the next several days, everyone, what Stephanie was saying right there at the end is so important, that we'll be gathering different voices all around how we can take control of our own healing. I think the most fundamental truth in the world today is that healing is coming less and less from our hospitals and conventional medicine, and is coming more from nature and from indigenous wisdom and from places where we have to go seek for the healing. And then realize, as if for the first time, that it's up to us to curate the healing that we need for ourselves and our community. So this has been a wonderful, rich beginning to our 5-day program. So this will bring our session to a close. I want to thank everybody. As Stephanie said, you're welcome to the after session chat group. The link is in the chat box, and we'll see everyone then again here tomorrow for the second session of our 5-day program on regenerative health. Bye for now. Thanks so much.